The next morning, we set out after the treasure.
Tall tree, spyglass shoulder, bearing a point to the north and northeast. Skeleton Island, east, southeast, and by east, 10 east.
Hey, over there! Come quick!
At the foot of a pine, half covered with green creeper, a human skeleton lay on the ground.
A skeleton, by God!
It lay perfectly straight, the feet pointing in one direction, the hands raised above its head like a diver's, pointing directly in the opposite.
It ain't natural. It ain't natural, but you know, lads, I've a notion in my old numbskull. Now, here's the compass. There's the tip-top point of Skeleton Island sticking out like a tooth. Just take a bearing, will you, along the line of them bones?
East, southeast, and by east.
I thought so. There's a pointer. Right up there's our line for the Pole Star and the Jolly Dollars. This is one of Flint's jokes, and no mistake. Him and these 6 was alone here. Alone. He killed 'em. Every man. And this one yawled up here and laid down by the compass, yes. 6 they were, and 6 we are. And Bones is what they are now.
I saw him dead, old Flint. There he laid with penny pieces on his eyes.
Dead, aye, sure enough he's dead. But if ever spirit walked, it'd be Flint's. He had heart, but he died bad, did Flint.
Oh, that he did.
May not it were. And the windy was open, and I hear that old song of his coming out clear as hell. And the death all on man already.
Listen. Can you hear what I hear? That's Flint again. Old Flint. Oh, Lord. It was his last words. Old Flint's last words about water. Oh, Lord, have mercy on us.
Shipmates! Shipmates! That's 750,000 pound, not a quarter of a mile from here. When did a gentleman of fortune show his star to that much dollars for a boozy old seaman with a blue mug? And him dead, too?
Hello there, John. Don't you cross his spirit.
Billet? Well, maybe. You know whose voice that was? It was like a somebody else's. It was like a... By the powers! Ben Gunn!
Aye. Aye. So it were. Ben Gunn it were. Why, nobody minds Ben Gunn. Dead or alive, nobody minds it.
Spyglass shoulder, bearing a point to the northeast, Skeleton Island, southeast and by east, 10 feet.
Hey, mate, here's the tall tree.
The first of the tall trees was reached, and by bearing proved the wrong one. So did the second. So the third.
Here it is. Aye, from God. Betty, here it is.
Before us was a great excavation. In this was the shaft of a pick broken in two, and the boards of several packing cases strewn around, all branded with the name Walrus, the name of Flint's ship. The treasure had been found and rifled. The 700,000 pounds were gone. We turned and saw above us on the edge of the pit Ben Gunn, Dr. Livesey, Gray, and the squire, all with muskets. The doctor's plan had worked. The pirates had fallen into his trap.
John Silver, you're a prodigious villain and an impostor, sir. You saved this boy's life, and I'll not prosecute you. But the dead men, sir, hang about your neck like snowstones.
Thank you kindly, sir.
I dare you to thank me. It's a gross dereliction of my duty. Stand back!
It took us 3 days to move the treasure from Ben Gunn's cave on board ship. On the 8th day of December, the Hispaniola reached Bristol. 5 men only of those who had sailed returned with her.
Well, that was 19 years ago. All of us had an ample share of the treasure and used it, wisely or foolishly according to our natures. Captain Smollett is now retired from the sea. As for Ben Gunn, he got £1,000, which he spent or lost in 19 days, for he was back begging on the 20th. Silver vanished on the voyage one night off the coast of Mexico, and we heard no more of him. The bar Silver and the arms still lie, for all I know, where Flint buried them. And certainly they shall lie there for all of me. Oxen and wain ropes would not bring me back again to that accursed island. The worst dreams that ever I have are when I hear the surf booming about its coast to start upright in bed, with the sharp voice of Captain Flint still ringing in my ears.
Pieces of 8! 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 Pieces of 8!
You have been listening to Treasure Island, starring Orson Welles as Long John Silver in his own radio version of Stevenson's great adventure story. This is the second in a series of 9 special broadcasts presented by the Mercury Theater. And here is Orson Welles himself, writer, director, and star of these programs, to tell you about next week's production. Orson Welles.
First of all, I'd like you to meet Jim Hawkins, Jr. Our leading man is 14 years old. Last season, he made a really startling contribution to the stage history of Shakespeare's plays. This was during the course of some experiments with the Mercury Theater sprinkler system. As a consequence of what must certainly have been extensive research in that field, he caused it to rain, actually to rain, and copiously to rain, where in more than 300 years it has never rained in Julius Caesar before. It rained on Brutus. It rained all over Brutus. In the Forum, I was Brutus, and I ought to know. Now, as dramatic criticism, I found this telling and even final. There's a surprise item in the funeral scene. I can assure you that the unexpected appearance on the stage of so many gallons of real water created in us all an impression that was almost overwhelming. Our popular leading man says that he did it all with a match. I don't dare think what he'll do. He's old enough to run for president. But meanwhile, no matter what happens to the plumbing, he can always work for the Mercury. As you've probably discovered, he's something more than a very gifted performer. And as I told you, he's something less than 15. His name shall not be withheld. I refer to that fine old actor, Arthur Anderson. Mr. Anderson is not new to the microphone nor the Mercury. He was prominent in Shoemaker's Holiday and in Julius Caesar as Brutus's boy Jeeves, the sleepy-eyed, silver-throated Lucius in brass buttons. He was at least unforgettable. As to our celebrated Mark Antony, George Coulouris, who has always somehow cleverly escaped Rainmaker Anderson, he played Captain Smollett tonight. Eustace Wyatt, late housebreaker of Heartbreak House, was the squire. Ray Collins is responsible for Ben Gunn, among other things. And that was Alfred Shirley as Blind Pew. Then you heard Stephen Fox and Agnes, guess what she played, Moorhead, and a Mercury roundup, William Allen and Richard Wilson inclusive. Jim Hawkins Sr. will bear no comment. Next week, we offer you the ominous and authentic click of the world's most famous knitting needles. Madame Lafarge's needles and Madame herself, Dr. Manette, Sidney Carton, and the entire French Revolution, same time, same station. It is a far, far better thing that I do than I've ever done. Charles Dickens, that is correct. That is absolutely correct. Charles Dickens' Tale of Two Cities. There is at this moment a disturbance in the sub-control room, and if it isn't a tumbrel, it's Arthur Anderson. It's a good thing the program's over. Good night, everybody. Thanks. Please write me the stories you'd like to hear, and goodbye till next week.
Remember, 9 o'clock Eastern Daylight Saving Time next Monday night for the Mercury Theater on the Air with A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. On tonight's production, Bernard Herrmann composed the original music and conducted, and Davidson Taylor supervised for the Columbia Network. Dan Seymour speaking. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.